showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
I want to welcome you to episode 205 of I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name's Chris Hollifield. I am your host. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for listening. However you got here, however you stumbled upon it, however you're consuming this right now, thank you so much for checking it out. Today on the show, I sit down with local Salt Lake City stand-up comedian Krissie Shelley. We have a great conversation. We find out her story. We talk about what got her interested in doing stand-up comedy. We chat about her podcast. We talk life. Really great conversation. I'm going to be playing that here in just a minute. I want to tell you about our show sponsor, Oleo Skin and Beard. Great local company. Check them out. Tons of great skin oils, beard oils. You can purchase them right from the website, oleoskin.com. Check them out. I'm a big fan of their beard oils. Helps keep the skin soft, helps keep the beard soft. This Utah weather, this Utah air can really dry my skin out, and this really helps things out in that department. So the face doesn't itch as much as it might typically do if you have a beard. So again, the website, oleoskin.com, go check them out. They list all the places that they're going to be selling their products here locally, as well as you can purchase them right there from the website from them directly. I'm sure you've heard by now the next I Am Salt Lake Live is happening Friday, January 22nd at Club 50 West, right at 50 West Broadway, right downtown. The show starts at 8 o'clock. I have a really fun evening planned for you. I'm going to be chatting with Jay Whitaker, Kat Palmer, and Richie T. Stedman. The show is sponsored by our friends at Slug Magazine, slugmag.com. So plan on coming out. It's going to be a really fun evening. Bring a date, bring a friend. Tickets are only $5 at the door, so make sure to get there a few minutes early. That way you can grab a seat, grab a drink. They have some great food there. And again, that's Friday, January 22nd. Show starts at 8 o'clock. And make sure you introduce yourself. I'd love to meet more of the listeners and love to interact a little bit with you. It's going to be a really fun night. So, like I said, this episode, Krissie Shelley joins me. We sit down, we chat. Great conversation. So why don't you join me as I chat with her and find out her story. We're off to a banger. Yeah.
This is going to be so much fun.
We'll cut that out, right? You know.
You're going to have to just cut out everything I say because it's all going to be stupid.
Where's home? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin. I wasn't born there, so I moved around and then landed in Oconomowoc in first grade.
You weren't born there.
No.
Where were you born?
I was born in Twin Falls, Idaho. And yeah, we lived there for a while. My mom owned a cake boutique there. She made like all the wedding cakes for everybody in town. And then we bounced around following my dad's job. We got to Oconomowoc and my parents fell in love with it and they just stayed there.
You have a pretty big family, don't you?
Yeah, there's 8 siblings, 2 parents. It's a good number of parents, I would say.
I obviously want to get into, talking comedy and kind of how that got introduced to your life, but I kind of want to find out a little bit more about Krissie here for just a second. As a young child, I just want to just touch on this just a little bit.
All right.
Were you a good kid?
I was an extremely good kid.
And you're not just saying that for the recording?
No,
yeah.
I'm not. Wink.
Wink.
No, I was a really good kid. I did everything I was supposed to do. I was a goof off. Like I was always... I have ADHD, so, I was always like jumping around and joking, and I couldn't really be like a calm child, but I was very good. So I don't know if those two are mutually exclusive.
They could be, or they're,
I wasn't a shy, sweet child. I was a very loud, obnoxious child, but I never did bad things. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
All right, cool. Do you believe me?
I do.
All right, cool.
At least for the recording, we'll believe you, right?
Yeah. Let's go with that.
I want to jump right into comedy just because there's a lot of present day stuff I want to chat with you about. So I don't really want to get too much into, the past. We can always, and that's the thing about podcasts. We can bounce around if we need to a little bit. But I want to find out, what got you interested in doing stand-up comedy? Like, when Was there a person or an event or
There
what
was.
What was it?
I've probably told the story too many times, but but this also goes back to when I was a kid. Growing up, I always loved comedy.
Sure.
Loved comedy. And
like, what did you love? Like, what were you like?
Mostly sketch comedy,
okay,
really.
Like, were you watching on TV
SNL.
or SNL?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And pretty much anything I could get my hands on that my parents would let me watch. I grew up in a very strict household, so a
Mormon household,
yeah,
right? You grew up
Mormon.
yeah.
And so I wasn't exposed to a lot of things, but the things that I was exposed to, I really liked. So when I was 14, I wrote SNL a letter, and I asked them if I could be on their show, and they never sent me a letter back.
So if you're listening, any of the SNL
Come on,
writers,
SNL.
You know, I got a few listeners of the podcast.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Maybe they'll hit
Up there in New York.
Up there in New York.
I'm telling you, these Salt Lake comedians were pretty awesome.
So you wrote them a letter.
Yes.
Because you wanted to go on there.
Because I wanted to be...
You wanted to be a funny person.
I did. I wanted to be a comedian. I wanted to be a sketch comedian.
Were you a class clown at all?
Not really.
Were you kind of the funny girl at school trying to make people laugh?
Well, yeah, I was. And I got in trouble sometimes for it. Like in band, I remember specifically, when we would do, I used to play trumpet in the band. And when the director would turn around, I would make fun of him, like behind his back during concerts. And he obviously found out. So, stupid stuff like that.
So this led up
nothing
to
big.
Doing comedy.
So it did. And then, I got, so I was a drama geek, and whenever we did spring plays, they were, like comical plays, and I ended up getting main parts in those fairly often. And do you know what madrigals is?
I don't know.
Madrigals is like,
this is a Wisconsin thing, I'm sure.
It must, I don't, yeah, those Wisconsinites. Oh, let me tell you. No, so madrigals is like the higher end singers from choir, like the elite. And they do this big thing where they dress up Renaissance and they do all these Renaissance songs and they put on a big performance, once a year. And, I tried out for the court jester and got it. So I was the court jester.
Was that a pretty big role?
It was like the main role. I was kind of the MC, all of the comic relief in between songs. It was basically almost like a one-woman show.
Wow.
Yeah. And I drank so much coffee the whole time. Like people were making coffee in the back. I'd run off stage, down 2 cups of coffee, run back on stage.
For what? That was because you felt like you needed the energy, or you felt that was part of the role?
Well, I think I needed the energy because it was a very, very high energy role. Like,
and how old were you at this time?
I don't know. Maybe
teenager.
Maybe 16.
15, 16.
Yeah.
Okay, just
yeah,
for
15,
timeline,
16.
just to follow a little bit.
And like, when you grow up in a small town, everybody goes there, and for like the next year it was like, oh, it's the jester. And that was like my claim to fame.
Sure.
And it was my favorite thing. I loved it. I know that that's what I've always loved.
You love the attention and the eyes on you.
Well,
and
of course.
Yeah. Well, not everybody.
I have to be the center of attention all the time.
A lot of people don't like that, though.
No, that's true. I don't think I like the attention. I think I get such a thrill out of entertaining people. Doing something that makes other people happy is just an awesome feeling. Or even that makes them think, or that just, something that catches people off guard. It's an interesting thing to do. So
you were doing plays and
I was like 16 years old,
sure.
making Lorena Bobbitt jokes in front of adults.
But there was quite a gap between that time period and you doing stand-up, though.
Oh,
because how long have you been doing stand-up, though?
I've only been doing stand-up off and on for 3 years.
Sure.
So, yeah, I never got into stand-up. I always wanted to keep doing plays and blah, blah, blah. But I went to go see Chris Kattan one time a few years ago out here. And
which is where, for people listening.
For people listening, Chris Kattan's a comedian.
Well, no, I know, but where at? Wise Guys?
Wise Guys.
Okay.
Wise Guys, West Valley.
Everybody listening isn't familiar with Wise Guys.
You're right.
We can't just assume.
Good point, Chris. Wise Guys is a fantastic comedy place.
Comedy club. Is it a comedy club? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a comedy club. In the one
this was out in West Valley, right?
Yeah.
They saw Chris Kattan was out in West Valley.
And they just opened a new one in Salt Lake. And if you guys are ever in Salt Lake, I would definitely recommend visiting Wise Guys. So somebody should pay me for this plug.
This podcast is not sponsored by Wise Guys. Maybe.
But it might be. Wink. I'm going to say wink when I want to.
So anyway, you saw Chris Kattan.
I did. And
you were like, this is awesome.
It was awesome. Well, here's the thing.
Was this your first ever comedy show?
Live, yes. I had watched a lot of stand-up on TV.
Okay.
Like, I loved stand-up on TV. But when Chris Kattan was coming, I was like, oh, I'm in love. Like, I've been in love with Chris Kattan forever. So I was
who isn't,
super
right?
excited. Right?
Yeah.
Who doesn't want some mango? And I just was super excited. And we went, and actually the openers, I just fell in love with comedy watching the openers.
Do you remember who opened for him?
I only remember two.
Who?
Andy Gold and Jay Whitaker.
Okay.
And I was like, those guys were funny. And Chris Kattan was horrible. It was like,
sorry, Chris.
Like, I wanted to cry. It was so bad. He was clearly on all kinds of drugs because he wasn't even making sense. It was terrible. And so it was kind of depressing, but at the same time, it just kind of planted that thought in my head. Like, I want to go see more of this. And then eventually I became friends with Guy Seidel, who was another local comedian. And he said, you should come to one of my shows. And I was like, okay, sure, why not? So we went to his show and I was like, this is awesome. And it was again at Wise Guys West Valley. And it like kind of just slowly crept up inside me, you know? And for 3 or 4 months, I sat around just thinking, I just want to go to an open mic. Like, I really want to go to an open mic.
It was eating away at you.
It was.
Yeah.
Like, I couldn't stop thinking about it.
Like,
I was writing. I was just writing and writing and writing, and I had
like
notebooks.
Jokes or what?
Jokes.
Like stories?
Mostly stories. I'm more of a storyteller.
Sure.
But I would just sit and write for hours and fill up notebooks of stuff. And then I would go through and I would pick out things that I thought might be funny and work on those. So I did that for months. And then I finally went and I did an open mic down when they used to have a Wise Guys at Trolley Square in Salt Lake.
I miss that place, by the way.
Oh, I love that place. Yeah. I was really sad when they closed it down. It's a beautiful venue. There's not a lot of seating. There's a lot of wasted space. I understand that there because it used to be a Hard Rock Cafe
too. Trolley Square is kind of a ghost town.
After the shooting.
Yeah, well, let's not get into
I don't know. I didn't. Well, yeah, no, sorry.
Way to be a downer,
true.
You know.
What do you think I'm here for? To be optimistic?
So you're doing writing, and you're
I'm just as much in love with writing as I am with
testing any of these jokes out on friends or coworkers or family or
no. Was
there a nervousness?
I was married.
Okay. Yeah.
And I used to like talk at my husband and like tell him everything and he was he was good about it.
He was a good sport.
He was a good sport. Yeah. And he listened to them and he would give me, genuine feedback and, it was really, really great about it. And, so that was mostly how I got feedback. And then I would record myself. And I would study the recordings.
Were you posting any of this on like Facebook or Twitter yet? Because I know
the actual jokes.
Yeah. Like, were you testing them out? So you weren't testing them out?
No, not initially.
Sure.
What happened is that a lot of people, for some reason, I started getting these followers, and people would always say, "Do you know, you just need to go through your Facebook statuses and find all the things because there are so many funny things. You should do that on stage." So sometimes I'll crawl through and I'll see stuff and I'll try to make a joke out of it. But I think they're two different platforms. I don't think jokes that work really well online always work well live.
Well, because the live is a lot of the way you present it and timing.
Exactly. And I'm very aware that my stage presence is not where I would like it to be. Everybody, all the local comedians in Salt Lake know that my stage presence is not great.
Yeah.
I got to work on delivery. So it's easy to deliver online because people read it the way they want to. But
I've never really thought about that. That is very true.
Yeah, it's kind of a science that I have not figured out.
And people are like, well, if this got a lot of likes, that means it's funny. Well, a lot of that even depends on the time of day you post it.
Yeah, it does.
And so there's a lot of
how awkward you are in person.
Yeah.
And a lot of the comedians that I will talk to, like my friend Tanner Nicholson, who's also a local comedian, he has two personas. He has stage Tanner and real life Tanner. So he kind of flips a switch and is a different person when he gets on stage. And we were talking about that because I don't have that. I don't know how to do that. Like, I'm just me.
Would you like to be able to do that though?
Yes.
Really?
I would. Because
why do you think though that that's important to do that? Why do you think that?
Well, you're portraying a persona, and a lot of people don't understand that when you're doing stand-up. Yes, you are yourself, but you're a version of yourself.
True, because not all your jokes are real.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And like, people think they are.
Yeah.
It's kind of tough.
That wasn't real. Well, yes, it was. If they said it was real.
What you got to realize is that professional comedians are professional liars. That's just the way it is, guys. The stuff you hear on stage, it's probably not true. It's just funny because real life isn't that funny. We got to make shit up. Or at least make it better.
So back to the first time getting on doing open mic.
Yes.
I'll let you go ahead taking a drink there. You're
sorry.
Little.
It's very important, Chris.
Yeah. So you got on stage. You went to an open mic, like a Trolley Square.
Yes.
Did you tell anybody you were going to do it?
No.
You went there. You didn't know anybody at this point.
Nope, I didn't.
So you just went there. You had some index cards, maybe. and
I tried to memorize it.
Really? 3 minutes is a long time.
Okay, you know what I do?
When you're up there,
Dude,
though.
3 minutes is a really long time.
Sure.
People don't realize that. Especially if you want your jokes to land. And you can't rant. You can't go off on tangents and just talk. You got to really focus. And I would write my jokes on my arm.
That's
so that I could just like look down at my arm. But then I would get nervous and I'd just be like staring at my arm. It's quite terrible. But I love it and I can't stop doing it.
Well, you jumped over. I had a few questions in between
I'm sorry.
for you. No, so you got up there. You got on. I mean, did you get some laughs?
I did get laughs. And the owner, Keith Stubbs, was there and actually saw me and was like,
"Who is this girl? Who is this magical unicorn?"
That's exactly what he said. Oh my gosh.
Well, because there wasn't a lot of females,
really
right?
Nice.
At this point,
there weren't. There were maybe 2 or 3 females at that point. Since then, the last 3 years, it's really become more broad. There's a lot more broad.
No pun.
That's the best pun ever. I am the queen of puns. Yeah, there's so many more women now, which is really neat. So
Keith Stubbs saw you.
He saw me, and he was.
Did he come up and talk to you afterwards?
Yeah, he did. And
really?
He was like,
how did that make you feel?
Good. I was like, oh, that's nice. And he was really nice. And he said, hey, he said, I didn't get to see your whole set, but I saw part of it and it was really good. You did a good job. And I was like, I thought I was going to collapse when I was on stage. I was shaking so hard. I thought my legs were going to cave. Yeah. I mean, it was terrible, but people were really nice about it. And they're like, you're funny. Good job. And so I'm like, okay, if you're going to say that, I'm going to keep coming. So I did.
So did you go back the very next week then, or was it a few weeks after that?
You know what? I don't really remember, but I know that I kind of got in the zone where I just had to be there every week, and I was writing just religiously. I have a desk job, so at work all day, all I would do was listen to stand-up all day and keep a notebook beside me. So if
who are some comics you were listening to? Just so we can get an idea where you're getting some of your influences.
So my all-time favorite comedian is Lewis Black.
We've talked about this.
I just love Lewis Black. I know that he's not everybody's style.
For people listening,
yes,
he's coming to Wendover in March.
Let's all go, you guys. Let's rent out a fun bus. He's with me.
Yeah. I mean, because this episode will definitely be up before March. So,
hey,
but Lewis Black, he's a brilliant comedian.
He really is. And you have to.
What is it that you like about him? What is it that you're like? Okay, or is it just? I
like that he's intelligent and he's angry, but he's not just angry. He has a point. He's clever. I think you have to really think to appreciate his humor. It's not stupid jokes that everybody laughs at. It's really in-depth humor. Like, a lot of it's political.
It's not just like, the guy farted.
Exactly. You know? He writes so well, that you really have to absorb what he's saying.
Sure.
And that's my favorite thing. I love comedians that are really detailed writers. I think that to me is the most important part of the process. Even though I know it's not. Presentation is the most important part, but I appreciate writing the most.
So Lewis Black, we were talking about some of your influences.
And his best friend, Kathleen Madigan.
I don't know if I'm familiar with her.
Oh, she's fantastic. She's a female Lewis Black.
Okay.
You have to listen to her.
I'll listen to her.
She has a bit on coming to Salt Lake to Temple Square.
Really?
Fantastic.
I'll have to check that out.
She's amazing. And I love Maria Bamford. Kumail Nanjiani, I think, is extremely underrated. He is fantastic. I like so many people. Pete Holmes, John Mulaney.
No, and I know it's hard, you know,
I can't even
when you're
pick.
put
Like,
on the spot
if you
and you're
gave
like,
me,
well,
like,
what are some of your
A
influences?
top 100 list.
You know, you get the people that are like, I like Brian, you know, Regan and Jim Gaffigan, and then you get the people that are like, I like David Tell and
Yeah,
you know, so okay, there's two different spectrums
That's
there. You have
true.
the clean comics.
Yes. And like the super dirty comics that rely on,
I mean, you're obviously not a clean comic.
not really. I'm not a dirty comic. I
Yeah,
don't.
well, that's what I mean. You're not like filthy. You're not
No,
like just like,
I don't
yeah,
talk about.
yeah,
I don't.
yeah.
Okay, I did one time have a sex joke
Sure.
because it was funny to me.
Do you want to be a clean or a dirty comic, or don't you really
I want to be a
care?
clean comic.
Do you really?
I think that clean comics are. Now, I'm not saying this to be like derogatory, but I think clean comics are better comics because
I think they're more intelligent.
Yes, they're more intelligent. They have to be. You can't rely on shock value. You have to make a joke land. You have to write well. You have to think. And to appeal to a broader audience, it's a more challenging thing. So if you can do it and you can do it well, I think you're an extremely talented comedian. So I do appreciate Brian Regan,
Yeah.
and I love Jim Gaffigan.
Who are
but they're not my favorites.
Yeah, I was going to say those are the only two clean comics.
I think they're the only two. Steve Solberg locally.
Steve Solberg.
Steve is great.
Can't forget. I've had Steve on the podcast.
Yeah,
he was
I'll have
on.
to go listen to that
He was
one.
on. Gosh, one of the first year I think I was doing I Am Salt Lake. I had Steve on the podcast. Great guy.
Isn't he the best?
Oh, yeah, great guy.
After the Joel McHale show, I ran into him and we sat outside Wise Guys and talked for like hours. Just hanging out. And I don't even talk to him that often or see him that often, but I love getting a chance to.
Yeah.
He's a great guy, good comic. Everybody should go see his shows.
So what would you say the best part of doing, now that you have 3 years under your belt of doing stand-up comedy, what's the best part of doing it?
The best part?
Or I don't know.
That's
Or,
hard.
you know, what's been the best? Okay, what's the worst part? Let's
What's the worst part?
The
Okay,
worst part of stand-up.
the best and the worst part
Sure.
are the same thing.
Okay.
I think.
Okay, which is?
The best and the worst part are being on stage.
So do you still get really nervous when you get up there?
Every time. I get so nervous.
Keeps you on your toes, though. You
It
know?
does keep you on your toes.
Because it keeps you alert and awake and the anxiousness.
Enthusiastic.
Yeah, sure.
It is. I mean, I'll never not be nervous ever because I have massive stage fright, and I always have, which doesn't make sense because I love being on stage. I think I love connecting with people. You know, all the people are there and you're engaging them, and it's just like one big happy conversation that everyone has to shut up and listen to your side of the story.
Have you haven't done an hour yet? No.
Oh no.
How long? What,
I've done
30 minutes or what?
I've only done 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Yeah, I haven't done any big things. I mean, I visited the Comedy Store.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. So, because you've had a chance.
I'm just taking away all your questions.
You're fine. You're fine. Well, no, I was going to ask you that.
Yeah.
So, people listening that might not be familiar with the Comedy Store, that's out of Utah.
Yep.
You've gone out of Utah.
I left the state, bro.
You left the state, which is in California.
It is. It's in LA.
How was that? How was that experience?
It was awesome.
Talk about
I
that.
loved it. It was just one of the smaller rooms. I think it was called the Belly Room.
Uh-huh.
And a friend of mine who is a comedian down there who books shows once a month contacted me and I came down to do a show, and I was the only girl on the show, so that made me more nervous for some reason.
Uh-huh.
But I did realize while I was there, my humor is too dark for some audiences. And then I kind of thought, reel it in. Maybe I have to reinvent myself. So at the moment, I'm currently trying to figure out how to reinvent myself to have a better sense of humor that will land with people better. Because then I talked a lot about, you know, like being depressed and suicide and stuff that was very real to me at that time. It's all the stuff I was going through, but it was also funny to me.
Well, you have to find humor in it. That's the only way you're going to get through it.
Yeah. And the comics after the show came up and said that, you know, you're really funny. And those were great jokes, but like there were some little rich girls sitting next to them who just felt bad for me. And they were like, oh. And so the comics were scared to laugh because they thought it would be insensitive.
How many people, like, was there a big room you were doing this in?
No, it was a small room.
Yeah.
It was a small room. There weren't even that many people. Maybe, I don't know, 20, 25 people.
Okay.
So, no big deal. It was a huge deal. And I loved it. And I loved being there. But at that moment, I realized I definitely don't appeal to a broad audience. I do to the West Valley people because they get it.
Is that a bad thing though, or maybe you'll find that little group though?
Yeah.
You know, because I mean, there's a
Find all the fellow
there's a lot of comics.
suicide lovers.
Sure, why
Hey?
not? I mean, there's a lot of comics that kind of have their little niche and their little.
That's true.
You know, and that's
true.
what's made them successful.
Yeah. Well, and I believe so much in honesty. The comics that I love are brutally honest. They're real. They don't sugarcoat things. They don't, just make random jokes about things. They take real life experiences and find the humor in it. And to me, that is one of the most amazing things you can do.
Sure.
So.
And that's when people are able to connect with you.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you're just another generic stand-up comic.
Which can be great. That really works for some people.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that there are different types of comedians because I believe that we need to have that array of humor. I think it would suck if every stand-up had the same sense of humor.
Now, so California, have you done Idaho or Wyoming at all?
No, I haven't. No? It's complicated because I'm a single mom.
Uh-huh.
So I don't have a lot of time. For me, I do comedy because I love it. I don't do it because I want to actually succeed. It's just something that I love.
So you wouldn't become just, what they call road dog it,
road dog.
And hit the road. I mean,
maybe if it paid.
Well, you get, yeah. Well,
it doesn't pay.
Yeah. Well,
it's a terrible way to live.
Well, I mean, it's a great way to make a few extra bucks, I'm sure.
Yeah. The problem is if you have little people who's will die if you don't stay at home and feed them sometimes. It becomes a problem.
Well, no, I could imagine. So, I mean, you're doing it because you genuinely love it and it's an outlet for you.
Yes.
To get out whatever you have inside of you.
I think it's an outlet and it's also a coping mechanism. With real life stressors and everything that's happening, you need a balance. I think everybody needs to have some kind of outlet, some kind of balance to their life.
That's why I do the podcast.
That's why I do mine too.
And yeah,
it's great. And to me, just entertaining people is the best outlet. It's the most fun thing to do.
Yeah. Any embarrassing moments on stage? That stick out? One or two?
I'm sure. That stick out?
No little nip slips or...
Oh, yeah, all the time. Every
Jackson,
time, I really got to stop wearing low-cut shirts. No,
I don't know if there was anything...
I have forgotten... I've forgotten my lines, which is not new for me. I used to do singing competitions growing up. And
I am learning all kinds of stuff about you tonight.
See, I've always been in front of people, but I suck at I get too nervous to do it. I don't know. It's I enjoy torture. But I
what was that singing show with Ed McMahon? What was that old was it?
Huh.
Oh, man.
I don't know.
And I know people listening are screaming at their Walkmans right now and saying,
"Is that how you listen to podcasts these days? These kids in their Walkmans? I need to save up for one of those. I bet they're $1,000."
I don't know. How do people listen to a podcast in their car? I don't know. How do you listen to podcasts?
How do I listen to podcasts?
Yeah.
In my car. I'm a junkie.
Sure.
It's if you gave me a podcast or free heroin, I would take the podcast. It's bad.
No, and I know you are. So
yeah.
But I was just curious.
So in my car and at work,
yeah.
Pretty much any time I have a free second to sit down, I have to have a podcast in my ear or 30 Rock on TV.
Amazing.
Those are.
I thought I was the only nut job that out there.
And this is what I know. I'm so glad when you said that.
Yeah.
Because whenever you meet people, their question is, "What kind of music do you like?" And when people ask me that, I get so nervous because I'm I don't know.
Yeah. Well, no, I
don't listen to music.
From music.
Yeah.
But
I listen to stand up and I listen to podcasts. Music is I'll listen to it sometimes, but it's not the thing that I go for.
Let's talk about your podcast.
Okay.
The name of it.
The Totally Real Podcast That Is Real. Am I cutting you off too much?
No, you're fine.
Okay.
You're fine.
All right.
So
I'm fine. Gentlemen.
Let's how long have you been doing the podcast?
We've only been doing it for maybe 6 months to a year.
That's it?
Maybe
for some
6
reason
months?
I thought it was a little longer.
Yeah, no.
And Annie, it's Annie, right?
It's Annie. My friend Annie Wagner.
How did you guys meet? How did you and Annie meet?
We met on Facebook. I've actually met most of my best friends through Facebook.
Good old Facebook.
Isn't it the best? So
I can't wait for people to say, I met him through Snapchat. That's going to be, that's going to be,
that will be the end of times. I will set myself on fire when that happens. I'm committed.
We met through Snapchat.
Oh my gosh. Do you think people meet through Snapchat? You can't. You have to already be a friend with the person, right?
Well, no, not necessarily.
Snapchat
not if they didn't get
for
their use.
those kids and their nudie pics.
Oh gosh, that's a whole nother tangent.
I think I'm like 80.
Yeah.
I'm an 80-year-old man.
So Annie, you met her on Facebook.
I did.
You hit it off.
Yeah.
Or did you make a post that you were looking for? But you've been friends with her for a while.
I've been friends. Well, I've only been friends with her for a year and a half.
Okay.
So, I had known who she was online for a long time, and all of a sudden one day, out of the blue, she sends me a text and she's like, I'm getting donuts and coming over to your house.
I never met her before.
Never met her, never talked to her one-on-one. And I was like, okay, I don't know what to do. Is this girl going to be...
Give me 10 minutes to clean up, right?
Yeah. But you know how sometimes people, you're like, I don't know what they expect of me. Like, why are they coming over? What's happening? But, she went and grabbed donuts and came over and hung out with me and my kids. And we just talked and I was like, this chick is awesome. Uh-huh. And we just immediately became best friends. And then, so we would get together and we would try to go do things together. Like we tried Bikram yoga. We tried to do this stupid thing where we'd do like 22 days of something. We would try to challenge ourselves to both do something together for 22 days.
Like every day, 22 days in a row?
Yeah.
That's intense.
So well, it didn't last. I think, we did Bikram yoga one time and then we're like, screw that. That was the worst. But after we did it, we're like, we were talking and I said, I've always wanted to do a podcast. And she's like, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to do a podcast. And so we were just in heaven. And then our plan was to do a podcast where we experience something, we would go do something, and then we would talk about it, our experience on the podcast.
Were you already listening to a lot of podcasts at this point, or was it from doing the podcast that you started listening to a lot of podcasts?
I was already listening to a few podcasts, not as much as I do now.
Okay.
But I've always listened to talk radio.
Okay.
So I kind of gravitated from talk radio to podcasts. Like at work, I used to just listen to 102.7, which is a local talk radio station.
I love it.
So I'd listen to the Browsers during work
Sure.
and like Doug Wright, the Browsers, Nightside Project. And that's all I listened to all the time. And then when I kind of moved into the podcast territory, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much more out there. Uh-huh. And I'm just babbling now.
No. I was just curious, what it was that made you... Because like for myself, I listened to a podcast or two here and there. Before I started doing I Am Salt Lake, but it was from doing I Am Salt Lake that I was just like, oh wow, look at all this free content out there. Mm-hmm. I can download and I, connect with these people.
Yeah. And it's fun to see how people do things.
Sure.
It's almost like studying an art form.
Absolutely.
As weird as that sounds.
No, it is. This is an art form.
I totally think it is. Yeah.
And we don't get credit for it like we should.
Yeah. Pay us our money, people.
Well, not even that, but it's just, it's even hard to get listeners,
It is really hard to get listeners. And I'm so lucky. I don't have a lot of listeners on our podcast, but
you have loyal listeners.
Very loyal listeners. The people who listen are the coolest people. And, I really appreciate them. Oh, hey, thanks, Chris. You're the coolest people. You're in the cool people club.
So so you and Annie, you're talking. Let's do a podcast. Right? What did you record your first podcast on? What was your equipment that you use?
I actually have a little recording studio that plugs into my computer that I got. I'm going to talk about a lot of local stuff.
No, that's
hopefully it's okay. Okay,
we're a local podcast.
There you go. The friend Guy Seidel, who's a local comedian, every year does a Christmas raffle comedy show and then donates money to families in need. And I had gone to one of his comedy shows and there was an auction for a recording studio and I bought it because I wanted to do a podcast. And this was like 2 years ago, maybe. But I'm like, I have to have that. I originally got it because I wanted to learn how to record and help my ex-husband record stuff because he is a musician. And I really wanted to like get that set up and I set up a website for him and I wanted to like really get momentum on his drumming. And it just, we never had time to do it. So I was like, I'm going to do a podcast. But nobody would ever do it with me and I didn't know what to do by myself.
Sure,
So
come on, you can do it by yourself.
just sit around and talk in a room like a crazy person. I do talk to myself all the time.
I do this podcast by myself.
Okay, that's fair. Stop proving me wrong.
So anyway, you get this recording from from one of Guy's auctions.
Yeah, I bought it.
You bought it.
I bought it. I was actually
So you actually had a decent set. My first 3 episodes of I Am Salt Lake were recorded on an iPhone.
Oh, really? Which, you know what? That actually works really well.
I'll go back and listen to them.
No, I recorded an episode on our iPhones.
Well, maybe now.
But yeah, maybe now. That's
I didn't
true.
know what
Yeah.
I would stick the iPhone in the middle of a room.
Oh, that's terrible.
And there would be one person sitting over here and another person over there. And I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah. The worst part is you have to go through
and there were
all of that to figure it out.
This was almost 4 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
There was no podcast really out there for me to. Yeah.
And you started before there were resources like there are now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So kudos to you.
Hey, thank you.
You have become a reresource. I'm here to learn at your feet.
Well, you're here. There's not much to learn. There's not much to learn. So your podcast. Did you enjoy it right from the start? Did you and Annie hit it off right away? You were just like, okay, there's chemistry here.
Oh, absolutely. The thing is, I knew when I met her there was chemistry. And I'm almost scared to ever try to do anything with anyone else because I know we just work so well together. But also I kind of rely on her.
Do you think though that
She's
maybe
good.
but there's a part of like, even with doing this show, I've had co-hosts on doing it with me, and part of it is I want to learn to do something with, other situations, other people, or sometimes I'll record at a restaurant, or sometimes I'll record just to kind of practice in other atmospheres, because you can become very comfortable in your situation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, just a thought.
No, that's true. Yeah, I know. I have so many reservations, but I think it's just 'cause I get scared.
Yeah.
But I think eventually I'm going to start another podcast just for fun, see what happens. So if anyone has any ideas out there, what do you want to hear some chick in Salt Lake talk about? I'll use a lot of vocal fries so you guys can hate me.
There's a reason for people to hit you up on Facebook or
on
Twitter,
Facebook.
Which I'll put those links at iamsaltlake.com. So
cool.
People can
hit me up on Twitter, you guys. Krissie tweets.
Reach it. So your podcast, do you have like a schedule or anything, or is it just kind of when?
We did have a schedule for a very long time. It's gotten more complicated with the holidays and everything. We kind of took the summer off because our kids were out of school.
Kind of took the summer off, the winter off.
Yeah,
that's what it's kind of sounding like. Well, with the holidays,
but
and
and then there's Halloween,
and then there's Monday.
New Year's is a week away.
Then there's Thursday.
Yeah, Thursdays are rough, and Friday. Who wants to do stuff on Friday? No, that's kind of what's been happening.
So, what's your podcast about then?
The theme of our podcast is asking funny people serious questions. So we try to get, I'm trying to get not local people too. We get local people because it's easier to get together, but we've done some Skype interviews. I'm still trying to get Jason Barber on. If he gets a kidney and keeps living.
By the way, Jason is a funny guy.
Jason is a hilarious guy.
Follow Jason on.
Yeah. Follow Jason is,
do you care
handle,
if I put his link on
please do.
This episode? I'll put Jason. I
fully support.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
I knew you would.
Yeah. @HateHug is his Twitter handle. Jason Barber on Facebook. Please follow him. He is so funny.
Where's he from?
He's in Florida.
Florida, that's right. That's right.
And we've been talking, and this is probably super boring for people, but his fiance Stephanie is a makeup artist.
Yeah.
And she is phenomenal. So if you follow him on Facebook, you need to go look at all the costuming that they do.
Huh.
Have you seen it?
I probably have. I mean, I've been online friends with Jason
amazing.
for I want to say, since I opened up my Twitter account back in 2007.
You are old school.
So however long I'm horrible with math, so I couldn't figure that out very fast. But I'm pretty sure I've been Twitter friends with him pretty much since 2007, 2008.
Really?
Yeah.
Weren't you friends with him on Twitter first?
Yeah.
So weird
Twitter
to me.
and
like I have a good friend who,
and he's like, who is this Chris guy? Like if he listens to this, I used to have a different Twitter handle back then. It was Drop Dead Chris was my Twitter handle.
Yeah.
And I used to post some funny tweets.
Were you super emo?
No, I was funny.
I'm drop dead Chris.
Hey,
I wear eyeliner.
I was into the whole star.
I'm just giving you. Let me mess with you a little bit.
I did wear eyeliner.
That's hot.
Yeah, I wore the eyeliner, and I was the little emo boy with the side swoop hair.
I think a picture of you being an emo boy needs to be the picture when you post this podcast. You can like Photoshop my face. You can make it an Easter egg. Like Photoshop my face somewhere. Like you didn't have a beard probably, so you can hide me in your beard, but that would be amazing. Like in your eye, so people have to zoom in really close.
I have a funny story on why I started growing a beard, but that...
Tell me. I want to hear your story. Yeah.
This is your...
Make it funny.
This is about your... Well,
I'm just kidding.
It was... I started growing a beard because I couldn't take a drug test.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
That's the honest truth.
Because you couldn't take a drug test.
I couldn't...
They require beards now?
No, at my
Those bastards.
At my day job, a rock cut open my lip, above my lip, and I couldn't go get stitches. And so I had to grow, I started growing a beard.
Oh, you couldn't take a drug test.
Exactly.
Oh, like, because there were drugs in your system.
Well, maybe a little marijuana, you know?
You got to spell it out for me. I am not the sharpest tool in the shed sometimes.
But, yeah, so no, I started, I would occasionally grow like the 2-week beard.
Okay,
before that. And, just here and there. But at that time, it was, I let it go. And I was like, wow, I actually.
Just going to own it.
I look pretty good with a beard.
I agree.
And, that's kind of and then I usually would do the 6-7 month beard, 8-month beard and grow it. But actually in January is the 1 year of my beard.
Oh my gosh, we need to have a beard birthday party.
And I was thinking, what do I'm going to go.
Can I take your beard out for drinks?
I want to go to a salon and get like a face massage and get the most expensive oils.
You totally should. And then we can braid flowers into it.
And how this is supposed to be your podcast, and all of a sudden,
no, this is fun.
It got on my beard, but yeah, no. So January, the yeared.
That's awesome.
But
yeared.
Yeah.
Oh, there is going to be a celebration. You don't even know.
A celebration of beards.
Celebration of beards.
No, no. So yeah, that's kind of the story behind my beard.
So do you like having a beard?
I look silly without it. I look. Well, you've seen pictures.
You look young. You have a young face.
Well, what you would think maybe I should be all about. To be honest with you, the length it is now, it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah?
It is.
Just a bit much.
It's not as easy as just jumping in the shower and getting out. And
you have to maintain like a woman.
Yeah, and so
oh my gosh,
it becomes very difficult. You know, and then some days it just no matter what you do, it just looks like a mess. And you're like, fudge.
They kind of have their own personality.
And you can't always guarantee when that's going to be. Mm-hmm. But it's also difficult.
Like if you have a hot date and it's just sticking up crazy.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I always thought, I want to have this really long, massive beard, but I don't know. I don't really think so. I think I'd like to find like a nice length and keep it trimmed at that length.
Yeah, you kind of do the it's very groomed. You have a very groomed beard.
Well,
that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, are most guys?
If I let my beard grow out, I would groom it too. I think I could beat you in a goatee contest.
You could beat me in a goatee contest.
I totally could.
I can't do goatees.
I have a sweet goatee.
Goatees. I have a problem with goatees.
That's all I can do.
Look at the type of people that grow goatees.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. But I'm just saying, I could be one of those people. Just give me 6 months.
But I don't know. Well, I mean, I was okay. Back to your podcast. Though.
Okay.
So I don't even know how we got on the beard thing.
I'm just staring at it.
Yeah, you're staring.
I'm intrigued.
You're intrigued.
Oh, I want you to hide my face in your beard.
Yeah.
That does not sound bad at all.
Yeah.
No sexual innuendos here.
Yeah. you know how we talked about favorite, worst, best part, worst part of stand-up
Yes.
comedy.
Yes.
Podcasts. What would be the best?
Worst of podcasting.
Yeah.
Oh man, the best part is recording. I love talking to people. Like I love listening to people and the way they think in their stories, and that's the best part. The worst part is trying to get people there to record. It is a pain in the ass.
I used to struggle.
It is really hard.
You got to remind.
You do have to remind. Yeah, but it's just, and people like commit in advance, but then they'll be like, oh, I don't know. I mean, I'm kind of tired today, or I just don't want to do it now. And it can get frustrating. I've had to do a lot of shows where our guests just didn't come. So.
Well, and that's why, I do, well, the way I do I Am Salt Lake is you have to have a couple back episodes, you have to have a couple
exactly,
in the bank.
because you're smart.
Yeah.
And our thing too is though that we do a lot of in the news things at the beginning. So we had attempted to try to record 3 at a time, and then I would be able to release them, but it didn't work with the way that we do our podcast because it's always news related, like what's actively happening.
Could you record that as an intro later though?
You know what? Yeah. We just probably wouldn't be able to have the guest on to weigh in.
Oh, and
we would have to get them back later.
Sure.
So, but that's actually a good idea.
Yeah.
I should think about that.
Because that's something. Who would be a dream? Or actually, the worst. You already said the best and worst part of your podcast. Who would be a dream person to bring on your show? Like, who would you just be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I
thought of that.
Janis Joplin on the podcast.
Janis Joplin.
I don't know.
Well, for me, my go-to would be a famous comedian.
Which would be who? You don't write a list out of like people you would love to bring on your podcast.
No, I don't. I should. Do you do that?
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I need to do that.
Most of mine already, and having you on this podcast, I'm able to check another name off the list.
Oh, yeah. That's nice of you to say. I'm so important. I think I would love to have John Mulaney.
Okay.
If I could have anyone, it might be John Mulaney. I think he's neat.
Where would you like to see the podcast go? Where would you like to, do you have a direction that you would like it to go, or are you just kind of enjoying the organicness of it to kind of see where it goes?
For me, I'm just enjoying it.
Yeah. And we need podcasters like you out there.
Yeah. I do it because I love it. I don't spend time doing things that I don't love. So.
Well, and that's for people behind the scene. No, wait, anyway.
Sorry.
You have to love a podcast.
You do.
I do love.
I crave it every week. I crave,
and that's why I do this.
So,
but there are some weeks I don't want to do this. I'm not going to lie.
See,
Absolutely.
but you've been doing it for a while.
But you have to. You're telling me every time you turn on the recording equipment, you want to do it.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Full of shit.
Hey, you know what?
All right.
You're full of shit.
No.
That's my awesome comeback.
No,
Christopher.
I think I try to look for the positives.
Because it does become a job. It becomes a job after a while. No matter what. Anything you do, anything that you have to commit to becomes a chore.
Sure.
And I can understand that. I think the thing is that honestly, we've had to take so much time off this year that it hasn't become a chore for me yet. And
become consistent. Do it every week.
Yeah.
And then it will.
So, if people don't come, do I just talk to myself? Just release it anyway? What would your suggestion be? I
haven't had a no-show in a long time.
Well, it's because you're special.
No, and I'm not even trying to say that in a. No. Then
he flipped me off when he said that.
People don't need to know all the behind the scenes. That's why it's a podcast. We're not periscoping.
We have to create a visual I cannot talk. A visual representation of what's happening.
No. Well, and that's why maybe. This is just a suggestion, and people are probably don't depend on that episode. Like if you record, like be a week out. I don't know. Just a suggestion.
No, you're right. I think that's a good idea.
If it's you and Annie just talking, which you've had episodes where it's just the two of you talking.
And, and I have heard this from other people too. Sometimes I feel like those are some of the best episodes.
They are. I enjoy them.
There's a part of me that's tempted to just do us.
Do it. Own it. become it.
Maybe. But then it sucks. It negates our whole concept. But
we talked a little. What you mentioned, listening to a lot of podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Throw a few out there. I mean, they don't have to even be big podcasts, little podcasts.
Oh, sure.
What are a few of your favorites? Because I know people are always asking me, Chris, recommend some podcasts, and it's like, some people don't even know how to find the big ones. Like
all the NPR ones.
Yeah,
and
it's
stuff.
like, well, oh wow, how do you find? To me, those are just second nature. But recommend a few podcasts. What? You're laughing at me.
No, I want to be like Serial.
Yeah,
Serial is a great one. But no, Serial is great. But
What's
I know
your favorite cereal?
That's the podcast that people listen to who don't listen to podcasts.
What's your favorite breakfast cereal?
What now? Oh, Lucky Charms.
No, anyway,
all the way.
So cereal. No, but
cereal's good.
Even cereal though has a place because it's exposing people to the podcast, the art of podcasting,
and I appreciate that. I think, and it's really well done. It is really, really well done.
People give shit to all the big podcasts. Oh, they just come in and they're famous and they're doing a podcast now.
Yeah, but all they're doing is improving
exactly So cereal, you would recommend cereal?
Cereal's great. I would recommend cereal. All right, other things. I'm kind of dark. So, Thinking Sideways and Sword and Scale are two of my favorites. And all of the How Stuff Works podcasts. There's a whole bunch of them, sister podcasts. There's stuff you should know, stuff to blow your mind, stuff mom never told you.
I used to, that was a good one.
Oh, it's so good. Chuck and Josh are the coolest. I should stalk them.
And so those podcasts.
Anyway, those podcasts, those are my go-to. I follow your podcast. And Pete Holmes, You Made It Weird. I enjoy that one.
I have a love-hate relationship with that one.
Some episodes I can't stand.
Yeah.
But it depends on the guest.
Yeah.
It really does. Yeah. There are some, and Mark Maron. I like what the fuck?
What the fuck? Lock the gates.
Hey, what the fuck, tards? Whatever his intro is.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I've tried to listen to comedian podcasts and I don't enjoy them as much, which sounds really hypocritical.
Like what would you consider a comedian podcast?
Well, like Bill Burr.
Yeah, just him talking.
I can't do his podcast. He just yells about sports.
I'll be like, all right, Bill, I'll give you another chance.
I try, and I love Bill Burr. Like, I appreciate him as a comedian, but I don't want to listen to him talk for an hour about sports. He loves sports. I don't do the sports ball.
Yeah.
So it's not interesting to me. Pete Holmes is hit or miss. I tried to listen to Aisha Tyler's.
Not familiar with that one.
Oh, she's a female comedian. Girl on Guy. It's called Girl on Guy.
Okay.
It's pretty good. The one, I think she interviewed Chris Rock, and that was a good one. I love listening to episodes where Chris Rock is a guest on any podcast.
I don't know if I've ever listened to an interview with Chris Rock. Is he a good person to is he very interesting to listen to?
He's very interesting. It really opened my eyes to a lot of things. Probably the life-changing podcast that I ever listened to, the episode, is Mark Maron's podcast when he interviewed Mike Myers.
Oh, yeah.
That was, to me, that will forever be cemented in my mind as the podcast that made me realize what I want to do with my life.
Did you listen to when he interviewed Robin Williams?
No.
That one is so good.
I should go back.
Well, you have to get the app to hear that one, because that one goes really deep.
It's one of the premium episodes.
Yeah, well, because it's one of his early episodes in like 50 or 60. Let's talk Salt Lake City.
Okay.
If someone was here for a day, they're visiting, they're flying in, they just have one day to spend in Salt Lake City.
One day?
Is there something you would tell them to go check out, go visit?
Everyone else would be like, you have to go hiking.
Well, that's
no.
I want to hear what Krissie recommends.
Yeah, Krissie does not recommend hiking because hiking blows. And then you need your inhaler on the way. What would I do if you're in Salt Lake?
I don't know. I mean, I
just got to think for a minute.
They think for a second.
All right. Jeez. Well, obviously go to Wise Guys.
Okay.
Check out a show.
There you go. So in the evening, you would take them to Wise Guys?
Yeah. But I'm partial.
Would you take them to the temple?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty.
Yeah, sure.
I don't think that I understand the draw that everybody always wants to go walk around. The architecture is beautiful.
It is. I mean, there's history there. I mean, that's
true.
Utah history. As much as I might not necessarily go that way, I appreciate the history of it.
Yeah. No, that's very true. I think I just don't get out much. You know?
You'd be just like, let's sit in and watch a Price is Right.
What I would do is I would suggest Netflixing. So if you're here for a week, just make sure you bring like your Wii U with you and hook it up to Netflix in your hotel room. It's definitely a good experience. I really don't know. Is that terrible?
Favorite local eating spots. Let's go there.
Oh, geez.
You got a couple.
So I live in Draper.
Yeah. Well, you got a couple down there.
Okay. There is. I'm not a downtowner. Like all you fancy people.
All those fancy hipsters downtown.
Yeah, you and your hipster ways. Probably my favorite place to eat is a little place called Two Shars.
Okay.
It is on 106th South, or with the extra zeros. That's how people talk out here. It's in South Jordan.
Okay.
Right off I-15. It's an express Brazilian restaurant. And the owner is an amazing guy. He's so awesome. He always talks to me whenever I go in. He remembers everybody. Just the best guy. And the food is amazing. So I would really love to see more people support that restaurant, because
so go check it out.
If they go out of business, I don't know what I'm going to eat for lunch. And I'll be super pissed off at everybody.
Be like, everybody that listened to
I'm going to start burning houses down.
Yeah. Chris, where are your listeners? They didn't go there and support this.
I'm going to take a tally.
Yeah.
For each listener who doesn't go, I'm going to break one of Chris's legs.
Like, I had so many legs. Well, I have two listeners.
You better all go.
2 listeners. So you hear that? You got a show coming up in February, don't you?
I do.
Do you want to plug that?
I do have a show. Crap. I would plug it, but I don't remember where it is.
Okay.
Well, I actually forgot about the show.
Okay. So
I get to do a gig at my corporate Christmas. Well,
I'm talking for people listening.
Holiday party. Okay, you're right. That want to see.
That want to come. So the best option is to follow you on Facebook.
Yes.
Follow you on Twitter.
I will promote it on Facebook and Twitter when I remember.
Are you going to start getting out more?
I want to. I really need to.
Start doing some more shows?
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah, I'm going to do it.
What's stopping you?
The holidays.
No,
it's just a really good excuse.
Damn holidays.
Let's just burn them. Burn it all. No, I think really what it is that I took a break to kind of reassess life. Yeah, I really focused on being a mom for a while, and my humor style. I really wanted to reinvent. So I'm going to get back out there. I can't not get back out there. It's highly addictive.
Yeah.
So
what do you want written on your tombstone?
Nobody cares.
I like it.
Because nobody really cares.
Anything else you want to? We'll wrap this up. I mean, I've had a great time chatting with you. Hopefully, it's been somewhat
Hopefully, I haven't
fun.
bored you.
No, I've enjoyed it immensely. Anything else you want to add in here and say before we turn the record button off? Any plugs or?
I think everyone should go check out my podcast. Totally Real Podcast that is real. It's fantastical.
It's in iTunes.
You might like it. It's in iTunes. It's on Stitcher.
Yeah, wherever you listen to. However you subscribe to this
TotallyRealPodcast.com.
Yeah.
On Twitter @TheTotallyReal. We have a Facebook page.
And I recommend it. I genuinely do recommend it.
He's very nice.
It's a good listen.
You're very nice.
Yeah. Well, especially since it doesn't come out very often. It's not like it's not like it's a big commitment. It's like
true. That's true. And our goal is shut up. I see what you're backhand. Yeah. Okay.
Well, have you ever tried to listen to a podcast that comes out like every day? That's a commitment.
Who does that?
Yeah, there's a couple I used to try to listen to.
Do they have day jobs?
No.
Good Lord.
Keith and the Girl. I don't know if you've ever listened to Keith.
I haven't. I'll have to check it out. That's too.
They're like on episode 1800.
But at the same time, I get really cranky when I run out of my weekly podcasts. And I'm like, why don't you put more out every week?
Yeah.
Like.
No, I hear you. I wish
Thinking Sideways had one every week. That would be amazing.
Well, and that is the joy.
I mean, not every week. They do it every day. I wish they had one every day.
Is that you download it when you want to and you listen to it when you want to. But
you can do it on your own time.
I get a little overwhelmed if my catalog gets a little backed up. I get a little
really?
Anxious, yeah.
Huh.
Do you? You don't?
I don't.
Really?
But I also have 8 hours every day that I can sit and catch up. So I think it's unique for me. I can sit and do that.
I used to listen to a lot. I don't even know.
I'm trying to actively add more podcasts because I don't have enough backed up.
So people listen. Hey, check this out. On this episode, that is your thing, is to let myself or Krissie know.
Yes.
Give us some podcast recommendations.
Yes.
For listeners.
And if you recommend one, I promise I'll listen to it and weigh in on it. somewhere.
I like that. Let's get the listeners involved a little bit.
I think that's a really great idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you listen to this podcast, you obviously have good taste, right?
I'm starting to wonder. But anyway, I'll let you go. I know you probably want to drink, Krissie. And
what are you insinuating, good sir?
A drink of water. Gosh. No, I really have genuinely enjoyed this chat.
Me too. This is fun.
Go check out some of her comedy.
Yeah, eventually I'll have the website Not Funny Jokes up and running.
Awesome.
NotFunnyJokes.com.
All right. Many thanks goes out to Krissie Shelley for joining me on this episode. Great conversation. I'd love to know your thoughts. Feel free to drop me an email at chris@iamsaltlake.com. Let me know your thoughts on this episode or any other episode of I Am Salt Lake. I'm going to put all the links to get in touch with Krissie Shelley at iamsaltlake.com/205. That's for episode 205. Feel free to let her know what you thought of this episode as well, and feel free to reach out to her. Check out her podcast. Again, all the links are at iamsaltlake.com. Hey, I got a brand new episode each and every week. Make sure you subscribe. That way you don't miss a single episode along the way. I've been chatting with some great people here in Salt Lake City, finding out their story, finding out what they're doing to make the city a better place. So you can subscribe to the podcast absolutely free. That way it'll get delivered right to your smartphone or however you listen to podcasts. Again, might I urge you, check out the website, iamsaltlake.com. I'm going to be doing all kinds of neat stuff there. I got lots of plans. I'm going to be putting all kinds of stuff there, so keep an eye on that. Make sure you're connected with me on some social media platform, whether it's Facebook or Twitter, Instagram. I'm on all of them. Make sure you connect. That way you can stay up to date on everything podcast related. So with that being said, I'm going to end this episode now. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening, for your support, for everything. It means the world to me. And you guys have a great week, and we'll catch you again on the next episode.